Cool. So, Dan, we're going to be talking about questions to ask your agency during the sales process.
Yep.
Which I think is really important, because as much as a sales process is about an agency winning business, a good sales process should also facilitate a client finding the best fit, and the best fitting agency for them as well.
We spoke about this in a previous podcast, but it's being able to have that strong cultural relationship that works for both sides. And I think these questions that you should ask your agency that we'll go through, I think are vitally important in that pitch process to really get under the surface level chat you will have with each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess consider this buying advice for your next agency pitch process.
Yeah,
almost.
I'd say so, yeah.
Perfect. And I think actually this is just good advice for buying any kind of service.
There's a lot of crossover we were speaking about it earlier, weren't we, around...
I've just procured a fence specialist to repair our fence after the big storms we experienced over the winter. And I think buying any service, you have to ask the right questions, don't you?
You have to get to the bottom of, like, do I want, for your example, do I want these people in my back garden for a prolonged period of time? And the same with us, do we want to have a long and fruitful relationship with this agency in the long term? So exactly. All goes together.
So hopefully useful for everybody. So what's your first question, Dan?
Yeah, so we've got 5 we're going to run through.
Okay.
So, and these aren't the typical surface level ones like, why do you want to work with us?
Yeah.
Kind of they're the obvious ones. So these are like ones that might make it feel a little bit more, not uncomfortable, but it'll challenge the agency, put them on the spot a little bit more. Make everyone think.
Yeah.
And it gives you the client the opportunity to really assess everyone. So first one I'm going for is, and we get this one quite a lot, is will we have direct access to the people doing the actual work? And then to slash on the side of that is anyone in the pitch process going to be working on the account? Like, are the people in front of me who we're going to be working with?
Yep.
So it's kind of two-pronged one there.
Very important to ask, I think. It can be difficult from an agency's perspective in the sales process. If you don't know when a project is going to kick off, it's hard to know precisely who will be working on it. However, it's definitely in our interest to give that our best shot, and put, at least at a very minimum, put the people in the room who are most likely to be working on the account.
Exactly. And I think the really good thing about asking this sort of question as well is, I'm a big believer that you should have direct access to the conversation with the people that are doing the work, and kind of they're the ones that are going to be able to, I'm not saying it like a client services team couldn't articulate it, but they're in the day-to-day, they can tell you how it is and things. So I think it's important, for clients to know if they can have that access, because sometimes having someone in between isn't the right fit for some clients and agencies. So I think it's a really good question to ask, just to get some understanding of, one, the structure of how the agency operates, and two, kind of, we feel confident that we can speak to the people that we need to speak to when we have a particular question. Yeah,
it's about access if there's an issue, or if there's an urgent question. There may well be a very, very good layer of account management and client servicing.
Exactly.
Brilliant. But I think being able to talk to the people who, quote unquote, push the buttons is really important, should you need to.
Exactly. So I think it's one everyone should ask. It just feels like
it also highlights structure. So if an agency relies on, outsourced, offshored resource, you'll know, because you probably won't have direct access, or it's a question that unpicks other things as well, I think.
And I think that sort of understanding that will initially be like, okay, I can see like how I can build the trust with this agency and things. So I think it's a really good one. I think I always enjoy it when we get asked that one. So that's question number 1.
Brilliant.
So question 2 kind of ties into that one, and it's around, what's your communication cadence like?
Yes.
So how regularly will we be hearing from you? I guess is the big question. It's key to understand that, I think, because every agency probably has a different answer for this.
And also, what's the structure of it typically? So cadence and frequency of communication. But what's the structure? What's the the thinking behind it, and why do you have, if you have a weekly call, what's that weekly call about?
Yeah. And also, people, like a client's going to have a certain budget in mind for that retained service. So the communication cadence explaining this is what you can receive for your budget, I think is vitally important.
Yes.
Because you don't want to for the client, it's good to understand that process, but actually it's a good question for the agency as well, because you can kind of really set your stall out and be clear. And I think everyone's then got clarity on that. And I think
definitely
it then helps you benchmark if you're in a pitch process with, you're selecting 3 agencies. Is one, what's the norm? Is one completely like, okay, we get back to you in a week. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I think it's just understanding what's good.
So like response times.
So we always try 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's just understanding response times. Are you gonna be there when I need you, fighting my corner to an extent?
Yep. Also, these things are very easy to say in a pitch. So is there any evidence that backs that up?
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy to be like, we'll be at your beck and call.
Yeah. Yes, client, whatever you want, whenever you want it.
But actually saying yes to everything's not a good thing either.
No.
A client wants to hear someone say no. So I think this is, again, a good question to ask.
And when we're answering that question and talking through our response times, communication, like proactivity is a big thing for us, right? Mm-hmm. But pretty much I think all of our testimonials from our clients talk about those things.
Yeah.
So there's evidence to directly back it up.
Yeah, we've got obviously the case studies which show the nice results, but the testimonials on the site from the clients just back it up. If anyone ever wants to talk for references, we always say, proof's in the pudding, go and ask them what our communication's like. So an agency that's confident answering that question, you'll see it as a client, and the ones that skirt around it are a bit unsure, don't want you to talk to anyone, you could probably get an understanding. So that's a good one, again, to really understand and set your stall out for what a good agency is.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
3.
Cool. Number 3, we're rattling through them. So this one's quite interesting. So it's around so basically it's trying to work out your positioning within the agency if you decided to choose them. So this one is, where would we sit in your client portfolio if we signed with you?
Oh, as in terms of tiering?
In terms of tiering, you probably wouldn't say tiering, but like, are we going to be your number one priority, your biggest spender?
Are we going to be your biggest client or smallest client?
Are we your biggest client or smallest client? Or are we just somewhere in the middle? It's working that out, because again, it's that expectation management side I like about this question, because if the client wants a brief where they want to be near to the top dogs in the agency, but actually this agency's got clients spending 3 times the amount they are, and you're actually going to be the bottom, not the bottom of the pile, but you're going to be near the lower end of the service level. I think it's important for the client to know that. Because it again sets the expectation of who might be working on the account. Comes back to the first question that I mentioned. Communication, cadence, that all ties into what we just spoke about, and I think it's
a great question.
It's really uncomfortable one to ask, but I think it's really important.
I think it's a very straightforward question, isn't it? And it sheds so much light on what the future working relationship might be like, or the future commitment to the working relationship might be like. Because if it's avoiding the situation where a client is going into a relationship thinking that they're probably going to be the most important client on the books, or wanting that level of attention, when actually in reality they're the smallest.
Exactly. And there's nothing to say that they won't go to that level. So
True.
We've got examples where,
but that just
someone started at the bottom, like near the bottom, but through performance they've scaled up. Scaled up, and now they're one of the biggest spenders. But you kind of just knowing where you sit, I think, is good for expectation.
It just shows so much, doesn't it? The answer to that tells you so much. I think it's really important to understand that, and there's no right or wrong.
No,
like you might be perfectly happy working with an agency where you're kind of around the middle, or even at the lower end, and you're just happy to get that level of service. And if it's all discussed up front and that's what you need, and happy days. You might want to be the biggest client. You might, there's so many different elements to it, aren't there? And there's no right or wrong, but It's such a good question.
Yeah, it's just a really good one, and it makes everybody have clarity in the room, I think, which is great. So that was number 3. So number 4. So this is kind of like a 2-parter, but they're linked together.
Oh, okay.
So technically, it's a bonus question in here.
Yep.
So the first one is, what is your staff turnover like? And the reason I like that question, I think it should be asked, is clients love continuity. They don't want a new account manager every 6 months or a new couple of new execs every 3 months. You know, they want some level of consistency and they can see progress in the account. I think that's a really good question just to understand. Okay, you know, if your staff turnovers on average is, I think the industry average is 13 or 14 months at the moment.
Yeah.
So if they know, oh, we're going to at least have someone on this for a year, say if that was our average, ours is more like 18 months roughly. That's a year and a half of like, okay, that's a good level of time. So I think it's just interesting to know, because if it's really low, it's probably going to set off a few red flags in the decision process.
Yeah, and also like, what's the context behind recent moves or changes or...
Exactly.
You know, I think that,
some things are not easily explained, but there's a particular reason, and that's fine, and then you can alleviate those concerns. But if it's becomes a bigger problem, if they do some digging, if you do have a Glassdoor account, if people can see these things on LinkedIn, like if staff turnover's there, they can build a picture if you don't tell the truth in that scenario.
I think the why behind it is really important. Also, breaking it down across different levels as well. So what's your... How long is this? So you're proposing that this senior management account manager is going to work on our account. How long have they been in the business?
Yeah.
What's their incentivization? That's really important. Yeah. And that's really different to supporting roles on the account.
Exactly.
You know, so I think digging into it is really important.
So it's a really good conversation piece in the process, I think. And then it kind of leads on to the second part, which is okay, so we say we've got average to good staff retention. So the question I think is really worth asking is, how do you effectively train your team to keep up with industry standards, to be the best they can be on our account? Just understanding what your process is around that, I think is really valuable for the client to know.
I think that's one of those questions where this sound odd, but the detail in the answer doesn't matter as much as the thought behind the answer or the actual reasoning behind the answer itself. Because I think with that, it's if you've got agency A and agency B, agency A can't really tell you what their training program is, or it's all a bit vague and fluffy. Agency B have got a really well-structured approach to training. They can tell you what the budgets are. They can talk about recent examples.
There's a clear difference.
Guaranteed, Agency B will have a better team that are more up-to-date and more motivated within their own careers, which is better for your account. So it's almost it's not the answer itself, it's the how you answer it.
Yeah, it's how you handle it, isn't it? Yeah. So again, it's one of those ones we mentioned at the start, like puts you on the spot a little bit, but if you're doing it, it's an easy answer for the agency.
Exactly, and it should be
just
very quick to answer.
Exactly. So really interesting on that one. And I think, again, like the first part of that is one where an agency might be like, oh, why have they asked that? But I think it's a good one for the client to ask.
Definitely.
And then the final one, again, as an agency, you might be like, oh, why did they ask us that? But I think it's really like an interesting one, purely because it's how, again, I think this is one where it's like, it's how you answer it, not necessarily the answer and how you approach it.
Trying to work out
So this one is, can you give us an example of why a client recently left you and the process you went through, like to correct that in the future? So it's kind of like, I think it's more of a question around how you'd handle the situation and how upfront you are with providing information and context. Because they could have left for a very positive reason. But it's just how you approach it. Again, I think the big one there for the client, not how not the detail on it.
I think it shows you, okay, how does your potential agency partner learn and adapt and develop from tough experiences.
Yeah. And this ties into a really good thing around account management, which is delivering bad news or not so good feedback. And this is, again, giving that sort of insight into how you would answer like a difficult question.
Yeah.
I guess.
I remember being in a sales process once where the client asked for testimonials from ex-clients, not current clients.
Because they'll probably be the ones that will...
Yeah, and I think you obviously have to be careful about how you read into the answers a little bit, because there could be all sorts of things going on. But I thought it was an interesting idea. I think it almost ties back. I have a thing with case studies, and they're really important, and we have to show off our work, and we're all proud of the work we do, and so we should be. But I think sometimes a blanket case study doesn't really tell you much. You have to, well, what's the story behind that? Like, what were the challenges in getting there? Okay, well, what about a similar client that did leave or didn't? It just learned so much from those just slightly more awkward
questions. Yeah, they're awkward, but you should be comfortable enough in a pitch process to be ready for any question. And I think these will really help clients get a flavour of like the behaviour aspect. The how the team's set up and structured, like what's your proactivity look like? Kind of all the core ingredients to an agency relationship, and to give you the right vibe.
Definitely. I
think, and are they the right cultural fit? I think these sort of questions will be a lot more clearer than just saying, why do you want to work with us? Because it's a good question to ask, because if they haven't done any research into your business, then no, but this really gets into the how and why. And
and you can see how people react to these questions, and that is as important as the answer itself. You know, tell me about a recent client that left. If you sit there and go, no problem, all right, let me have a think about or do you sit there and do you tense up and like get all nervous and start sweating and interesting.
So I think there's a few more we could do, but they're the top 5, I'd say. Next time you're in the pitch process, you don't have to ask all of these, but give them a try and see how your agencies answer them. And if we're lucky enough to be one of those,
ask ahead.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan, though.
Cool.
Yeah, really interesting, as always.
Perfect. Cheers, John.
Right,
catch up soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, please do come and subscribe. Join us for future episodes where we talk about the ins and outs of running paid media and driving improved conversions and revenue for your business. See you next time.